Welcome back. Now, our next guest has been called a modern Agatha Christie, and her gripping Donegal-set crime series is set to hit our TV screens as well.
Now, this week she returns with a haunting standalone where mystery meets the unexplained. Writer Andrea Carter joins us live in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Now, tell us about the premise behind this book, because it is kind of born from personal experience. The seed of it was planted.
It is, yes. The idea for this book came when I was waiting for... My husband is a documentary producer. And I think we often write to process fear. I think it's one of the reasons that women write crime so well. And I think it's probably one of the reasons why women read so much crime. And I was waiting... Jeff was away filming a documentary in the west of Ireland, and I was waiting in our apartment in Dublin with our dog for him to come home, and he was late, and I was worried, and I started to write to take my mind off my worry. He eventually came home, but in the book, there came a tapping. Ali is waiting for her husband to come home, and he doesn't come home, or her partner to come home. He doesn't come home, and she is forced to report him as missing. Thank you. She's forced to report him as missing to the guards. And shortly after that, a couple arrive at their apartment, claiming to be the new tenants. And she's forced to move out of the apartment and into Raven Cottage, which is the reputedly haunted house in the Slieve Mountains that they were restoring to live in as a holiday home, or to use as a holiday home. And that's when things really start to unravel for Ali.
So is there an element of... because people will be familiar with the Inishowen mysteries and the sort of crimes. Is there an element of the sort of supernatural here as well, if you're getting into the ghost haunted house?
I mean, I think we all like a good ghost story, and I certainly like a good ghost story. And I think in Ireland there's very much a history of... we have a tradition of the Gothic literature with Bram Stoker and Sheridan Le Fanu. And so I think I wanted to include an element of sort of repressed anxiety, which is very much part of Gothic fiction. But also, I grew up in an old schoolhouse, which my siblings and myself were convinced was haunted. And my younger brother, Owen, used to see a little boy at the end of his bed.
Oh, God.
And I used to see a little girl dressed in white. And neither of us told each other about this until we were adults, until we were well into adulthood.
Wow.
And so we were very much aware of past lives, the other families who had lived there before us. Our house was, about 200 years old. And so I wanted to include that, I suppose, in this book.
Yeah, it's interesting. Are any of your grandmothers an O or a Mac? Because my grandmother used to say, she's all similar to superstitions, if you were an O something or a Mac something, that you could see the sight. And
Well, actually, my grandmother, who I dedicated my first book to, actually, I was very close to my grandmother, and she felt, I think, that she had the gift of second sight. And there was, while she came into this schoolhouse that I grew up in and felt that it was a happy house, even though there were spirits there, there was a stretch of road in the Midlands that she would drive about 20 miles out of her way to avoid it, because she had this sense that something terrifying had happened there. She wasn't sure what it was. I don't know if she ever knew what it was, but she certainly would avoid it.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's kind of pebbled through this book.
Oh, very much so. I think there's a touch of the unexplained about this book. It's not a ghost story, but there's a sprinkling of ghost story.
The anxiety that underlines it, yeah.
It's a psychological crime novel, really.
Yeah.
It's a present-day psychological crime novel with a sprinkling of the unexplained.
So is this in the same world as the Inishowen mysteries, or have you taken a step outside of that now?
I think the Inishowen mysteries are very much Agatha Christie style. They're written in the tradition of the golden age of mystery. So I think if you read one of my Inishowen books, you're guaranteed to have a body at the beginning, a limited cast of suspects, an amateur sleuth, and a solution at the end. this book is straying into darker territory, I think. Okay. However, location setting is very important to me in my books, and the Inishowen Mysteries couldn't be written anywhere else.
We have 3-part structure, which is perfect for adaptation into the screen.
Absolutely.
Which has joyfully happened for you. There you go.
Yes, absolutely. The Inishowen Mysteries, the 6 of them are being adapted for television. There's an Irish-Canadian co-production deal, and so I'm told Edwina Forkin is the Irish producer.
She's a great producer.
She's fantastic. And there is a Canadian company called Neshama involved, who are backed by Fox Entertainment. And I'm told by Edwina that they'll be going into production at the end of the year.
Yeah. So do you have any involvement in that? Or do you just like, this is my series, this is my baby, you take it now and make it into something else?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. I have probably a very nominal executive producer role or assistant producer role, but I'll be very much standing back on the sidelines and watching with interest to see what they do with it. And I'm very excited about it, of course.
Do you get any say in the casting, or do you have anyone in your mind that you're like, this is perfect?
I would say I will get no say in the casting if I'm being realistic about it.
But when you write your novels, do you have a sense of who, do you picture who they will be, and are they famous people or just completely fictitious?
I have, and this is very much a kind of a writing part of my writing process. When I create a character, I have a very clear image in my head of what they look like, though I'm careful not to describe them physically too much in the books. I like people to imagine who they want to be these people or these characters. But I cut out, if I have created a character, I'll be flicking through the newspapers at the weekend and I will spot somebody and think,
that's that person.
Cut it out.
I've always wanted to know that.
Put it on the wall. And I was writing in a cottage a number of years ago, and I was on my own on a windy cliff, and I plastered photographs from newspapers of all my characters on the walls, and I was able to talk to them while I was writing.
Are some of them famous people or just random pictures?
Possibly.
Oh, I'd love to have a look at that.
I need to know who it's going to be. Yeah.
I'd love to have a look at that.
A combination of the two, usually.
Yeah. But so you've a fascinating story. You've already mentioned growing up in the Midlands. You were a solicitor first, then a barrister. So how did you end up in a show? And as I think you've described it, the last legal advice between here and Iceland.
Yeah. Well, I got my first job, actually, in Inishowen as a solicitor, because I grew up in the Midlands. I grew up in Laois, which is where this book is set. And Laois is the only county in Ireland that doesn't touch a county that touches the sea. So it is the most inland county in Ireland. And I end up on a peninsula surrounded on all 3 sides by sea. So that's how I ended up there, and it seemed to me like an incredible place to set a crime novel, with the deserted beaches and the cliffs, the towering cliffs, and the wind. The
possibilities for murder are endless. You can hide the bodies anywhere.
Yes, but I've now discovered there are possibilities for murder in the Slieve Blooms in the Midlands as well. So yeah, I'm dropping bodies all over the place.
And how much does that legal knowledge then creep into the script? Because obviously you know things inside out, and you can sort of play the law to your advantage.
I think the legal knowledge and you know, as a barrister, I probably practice mostly in crime. So my practice as a solicitor very much informed in a general way the Inishowen Mysteries, because the legal side of things is part of the narrative and very much part of the plot. But I am very careful not to include any case that I was involved in, because I don't want to be sued.
Yeah.
So,
it's a good baseline to start.
There's still a lawyer there in the background.
Yeah, in fairness, it's how many other we see it in Netflix series and stuff all the time, like Baby Ranger getting in loads of trouble for doing stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I think I'd be very careful about that kind of thing.
So this is a standalone. You're not going to have a sequel to that. So what's next in the pipeline for you?
Well, I'm writing another book at the moment, but if you talk about the book that you're writing, then you kill it. So I'm not about to do that. But,
okay.
So writing another book, always writing another book. I usually have a deadline almost every year. So. And I'm obviously very interested to see what happens with the television series. I'm excited about that.
Has it changed much? Because you took 10 years to write the first one, and it's been a year since. That's
no
a very
choice.
Much change in production.
It's amazing how quickly you discover you can write a book if you have to. And also, as a lawyer, deadlines scare me. I take them seriously.
Which, of course, they would have to, or else you'd be in serious.
But not every author does, in fairness.
If
now,
you don't show up in court, that's a contempt of court slapped on you away.
Absolutely. So, the first book took me 10 years, but then I was practicing law at the time, and so I had a full-time job while I was writing, and now I have no excuse. The writing is my full-time job. So
you seem to be doing very well with it anyway.
Well, thank you.
It's lovely chatting to you, Andrea.
Thank
you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks a million.
And of course, Andrea Carter's new book, There Came a Tapping, is available now.
Now, after the break, Padraig Wilson McCarthy is here to give us all the latest in the world of showbiz gossip. We'll see you soon.